the Chicago Treasurer's Office do?
The treasurer is one of 3 elected citywide offices, along with the mayor and city clerk. We're a balance of power. The treasurer's office does not raise your taxes or spend money. We invest the city's money. And we educate small businesses and residents of how they can invest and make money too. Think of us as the city's financial gardener. We make money grow. The Chicago Treasurer's Office. We're a valued resource that's worth a fortune.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Chicago Treasurer's Office, we welcome you to Day 2 of National Small Business Week. Today, we will have a workshop presented by SomerCor, who has been in business for 30 years. SomerCor is the leading they lead with small business administration loans, 504 loans, and SomerCor offers a unique range of financial solutions to help grow your business. Their objective is to identify the best financial option for your business and guide you through the entire process. Today, we are honored to have Kimberly Brisky from SomerCor, who will be presenting her webinar on access to capital to purchase or make permanent improvements to your small business. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here today and welcome everybody in celebration of Small Business Week. As the introduction said, my name is Kim Brisky. I'm the Managing Director of Communications at SomerCor. We're a nonprofit lender certified by the Small Business Administration, and our key product that we offer is the SBA 504 loan that's for the purchase, renovation, and refinance for commercial real estate. We'll dig into that a little bit later on today. But SomerCor is unique in that, in addition, we actually administer 2 key grants on behalf of the City of Chicago: the Small Business Improvement Fund, SBIF, and the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. And again, these are both focused on commercial real estate and permanent building improvements. So as a nonprofit, our focus is really to be able to support small businesses in every stage. And even if it's not SomerCor that can help, please feel free to use me as a resource to try to find the right place for you in terms of your capital journey, or even if you're just getting started and would like some technical assistance with a business plan or other things. I am aware of a lot of resources that can help. But let's get started about the conversation today. So this is sort of just a quick guidepost. I know it looks like a lot of points, but it's similarly the same theme for each of the programs, which is understanding their mission, parameters of the grant or the funding, the eligibility rules, how you can actually use the funds, also some sample projects to get inspired about opportunities for your business, and then a couple of details about how you actually can apply and information about resources to help you through the process. So let's start off with SBIF. Launched in 1999, the Small Business Improvement Fund, it's one of the city's oldest and most successful economic development tools. It created this program that allows both small businesses who are acting as tenants or owner-operators, as well as landlords, to access reimbursable grants for permanent building improvement costs. It's important to note right off the bat that residential projects, including home-based businesses, will not be eligible. SBIF grants use TIF financing to reimburse grantees for their pre-approved repair rehab of their property. And again, we've been with the City of Chicago working on this project since 1999. And our actually current director of the SBIF program has been with SomerCor for 17 years. So we have a lot of experience among our team. I think the first thing that people want to know when they learn that there's a grant available to potentially help their business is how much can you actually access? And here are kind of the quick rundown. If it's an industrial property, your maximum grant is $250,000. If it is a single pin owner tenant commercial property or landlord, it's $150,000. But let's say you're in a multi-tenant property, it's going to be $250,000 for the entire of the property, but each tenant will have the maximum of $75,000. And the great thing is that let's say you're ready now to maybe do a smaller project, not up to the full maximum grant size. You can do it now and reapply the next time around. Or let's say you do one big project and it hits the maximum of your grant size. You'll have to wait 3 years after you are paid out, but then you will be able to apply again. We have quite a few multi-cycle applicants that have gone through the SBIF program. And this is actually a new improvement to the SBIF program since 2020, is they actually increased the amount of project costs of your actual project that can be reimbursed. So now if your commercial real estate project, if your business has between $0 and $3 million in sales or net worth, you'll be able to be reimbursed for up to 90% of your eligible project costs, maxed out at the $150 for the commercial property. I would say most of our projects do fall into that. So then you can see here between 3 and 6 million, you get 60%, 6 to 9 million, 30%. But let's say you're an industrial project across the board, the maximum grant size, as I mentioned, is $250,000, and you can be reimbursed for up to 50% of your eligible project costs. So let's kind of roll now into who would be eligible to apply. The critical thing about the SBIF program is geography. That's the first place we start. So your property must be located in a TIF district where SBIF funds are available and it's open to accept application. Again, I mentioned landlords can apply, business owners who either lease or own their place of business. You could be a tenant with written approval from your landlord. And also, to be clear, startups can also apply. But you will eventually need the Chicago current business license to be able to be reimbursed. Again, a few other eligibility limits here, which, to be honest, we don't run into as many issues now. They've been bumped up. That a commercial tenant or owner occupied must have 9 million or less in gross sales per year. Landlord would also mean not only the 9 million or less, but a cumulative net worth and liquid assets at 500,000 net per individual. In industrial, the key factor is that the business is 200 or fewer full-time employees. So I would just say as a reminder that all owner occupied are subject to both tenant and landlord requirements. As I noted, since this was adjusted in 2000, we don't have as many folks that run into these issues, but this is important to know the grant parameters. So let's talk a little bit about the eligibility rules. Is your business in a SBIF district? That's the first most important question to ask. So what we have actually created is something called the SBIF Locator Tool. If you go to SomerCor.com/SBIF, our website, you'll be directed to this page that shows 4 steps to be able to check on your eligibility and learn more about the program. If you click on one saying confirm your business is in a SBIF district, it will take you to the page that's on the bottom right, and you enter your property address there. What will pop up then is if you are in a TIF district, it will tell you so. And not only that, it will say, this is your district name. This is what it's scheduled to open. And these are some delegate agencies. These would be groups like chambers and other organizations locally that can help you with the application. So we definitely encourage you to reach out to them as a resource. So let's say we know that, yeah, my project is in a SBIF district. The next question is, okay, when is it open for applications? So it's important to note that we actually have a regular e-newsletter that lets folks know when districts are opening. We also have it posted on our website. And if you're looking specifically for your district, if you go to SomerCor.com/SBIF again, the second dot there says check which SBIF districts are open. And if you click on that, you'll see on the right, it's a full list of when the districts are set to open, close. And if you click on the map link, it'll show you just again the actual map of the district, so you can see the areas that are open. It's important to note, though, that there are some limitations on the types of businesses that can apply. So let's run through a couple of these really quickly. As a reminder, this list is not comprehensive, so if you have additional questions, just feel free to contact us. So businesses that we would not be able to accept as part of the SBIF program would be financial institutions, liquor stores, nightclubs, adult use, private clubs, schools, gas stations, places of worship. We also would be like non-for-profit social clubs, or if you have a national affiliation, those would all not be eligible. So feel free, if you're not sure if your business would fit or not, to send us a contact, and we're happy to walk you through that process. So now if you've determined, yes, you're in a SBIF district, you know that your district is going to be opening, now you got to decide, okay, well, what can I actually use the money for? Is this worth it for my business? So the SBIF program is really focused on permanent building improvements, not only to support your business, but also to revitalize the commercial corridor that it's on. So here's a non-comprehensive list, but some of our highlights and the most likely work that we see. That's going to be things like your roof, facade, components of signs and awnings that are affixed to the building, structures for ADA compliance, HVAC, other mechanical systems, plumbing, electrical, even if you need any other type of build out, permanent interior fixtures, these are the kinds of elements that we would be able to cover. But then, in terms of what we wouldn't be able to cover, I always like to think of it as, this is not something that's for a spruce. This is for something that's really going to make an impact on your business. So if you just like to get a new coat of paint or a new floor, that won't be eligible. However, if that's part of a bigger project, we would be able to pay for it. We can't do things like new construction or getting any type of equipment that you could roll in on a dolly. That's how I like to think of it. Another key is any outdoor dining, drinking, roof deck, beer garden, those types of places, that's not eligible. Parking lot construction or repair, any landscaping. And again, as a reminder, work on interior of residential units. We do often get mixed use properties that apply for SBIF, and that's just fine. But in terms of the interior part of the residential unit, any work there will not be eligible. And as I mentioned before, a big key of the SBIF program is making sure that it's also improving the actual commercial corridor it's on. And so they do have a requirement within the program to make sure that anybody who has a grant that's $25,000 or over shall be required to make at least one exterior improvement that uses 10% of the maximum approved grant. So what that's really about is saying we're happy to help you interior with your electrical and the other things, the guts that makes the business strong. But it would be great then if you could also do some tuck pointing, new windows, doors, lighting to make an impact on the corridor as well. So this is an opportunity to kind of look at some sample projects to kind of get inspired about what you could do with your business. This is for the Bronzeville TIF, which actually is just open this month. And this is the MHA Cakery and Cafe. And you can see the before all boarded up and basically empty inside. And here's the after, where you can see the new lighting, the new windows and doors, and a complete build out as well. Probably all the electrical, plumbing, all of that good stuff was included as part of the project. So this is quite a transformation. Another sample project was on Madison Austin corridor. This is Wiley's Chicken and Ribs. Again, you can see interior, there was nothing going on. And on the exterior, boarded up. And the transformation is awesome. You can see this beautiful new storefront, and interior, the build out of the kitchen space as well as the counter. So this is a pretty awesome transformation for this project. So if this sounds like something that would work for your business, I encourage you to go to SomerCor.com/SBIF. Again, we've been there a couple times in this presentation, and there's that big white button there, and that's where you can apply. What you do is you fill out the application there and email it to spiff@somercor.com during your designated open period. So let's say you know you're in a SBIF district, but it's not open for applications at this time. Don't send the application, because if you do, we're going to reject it just because we can only take applications for districts that are open at that time. And it's important to note that the application process for SBIF, like the actual application itself, is only 3 pages. It's very simple, but you will down the road have to be able to show more information about your business. And this would be typical of any project where you're going to be accessing finances. So that's going to be things like your business tax returns, your proof of property ownership or your lease if you're a tenant, being able to show if you're a startup, your projected income and expenses, things like that. So while it's not required right when you apply, it will be as you work through the process. So especially if, let's say your district is not open now, but it's going to be opening in the future, and you're trying to think of things that you could do to get ahead, this is one of those things, starting to collect those documents. And just for your reference, this is sort of the stages of the SBIF program so that you understand. First you apply, then your next stage, you'll have 120 days to be able to actually get your plans and bids and work with contractors, as well as if you have any debt to the city scofflaw, things like parking tickets, water, things like that, that you can get those either squared away, either through payment or through setting up a payment plan. Once you're all set with that, you'll get a conditional commitment letter, and that's the sign that you can start your construction. Any work done before that point, you will not be able to be reimbursed for. You can only be reimbursed for work that is approved and started after you actually get your commitment letter. Then you're going to have 10 months to do the construction, with a couple of other smaller phases in between where you show us your proof of permitting as well as proof of financing to be able to pay for the project up front in order to be reimbursed later on. And then obviously at the end, you'll be able to be reimbursed within 4 to 6 weeks of the project completion once you send us all the paperwork. I know that for a lot of folks, this might be the first time either embarking on construction or trying to access capital. So we have a lot of resources available for you, from technical assistance to contractors who have previously done work on SBIF projects. So I encourage you to access those resources. And I know that this presentation will be available for everyone later on, but this is sort of our contact information for our entire project management team. So I am going to now actually just roll right into NOF, but I do want to mention that if anybody has any questions specific to SBIF, feel free to be sending those in. I know that the Treasurer's Office will help navigate those questions at the end of the presentation. So the next program that we're going to talk about is the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund. And it does have some similarities to SBIF, but there are some key differences too. First, it's newer, launched in 2016, and while it's also geographically focused, rather than being tied to TIF districts, the NOF program is tied to specific areas on the south, southwest, and west sides. Again, residential projects are not available. The key is how do you fund this actually is that any development projects that are happening in the loop, there actually are fees that are collected, and 80% of these funds are used by the NOF program to do these projects. And SomerCor has been the administrator since the beginning. So in terms of the types of projects that you can complete, that's going to be expansion or renovation for existing businesses, new locations for startup businesses or existing businesses, or even new construction at vacant properties. So there are 2 different types of NOF grants. We're not going to be covering the large grants in this program, or excuse me, in this program today. We're going to focus on the small grants track. Grants are eligible up to $250,000. There is a competitive selection process based on application details. Again, this is a difference between NOF and SBIF. SBIF is not a competitive grant. It's focused on the amount of money available and your actual specific address being located in a TIF. While on the other hand, NOF is very much a competitive process that's focused on the application and your readiness. Grantees are expected to complete their projects within 2 years. So let's talk a little bit about the financing and the grants so we can understand how the NOF grant works. So every NOF applicant will be reimbursed for 50% of their eligible project costs. That's across the board. Additionally, if you are yourself a local resident who is actually in part of the qualified investment area, which we'll show on the next slide, you can then automatically up your reimbursed part of your grant to 75%. Additionally, if after the project is complete, you hire locally from folks who are actually in the qualified investment area and able to prove that through your W-2s and other forms afterwards, you'll be able to actually receive 100% reimbursement of your eligible project costs up to $250,000. But regardless, everybody who's participating in the program will have to contribute at least 25% upfront to actually complete the project. So this is the maps that I was sort of referencing in the slide before. On the right, in the qualified investment area, that's where if you are in that area, you would be able to be eligible for that extra 25% grant, as well as if that's where you hire folks from, that's where you'd be able for that final work bonus as well. On the left is an actual map of the different corridors that the city of Chicago is really focusing their investment on, and that will help determine whether or not your project is eligible. There actually is going to be a form that will, you can actually go to the website, put your address in, and it'll tell you right off the bat if you're in one of these key corridors and if you're eligible to apply. A few more details about eligible applicants. There are a few things that are different than SBIF, a couple of things to note. Again, commercial property owners, they're allowed, but it's not for speculative use. So we're not going to have any vanilla box projects where you just make it pretty, but there's no tenant tied to it. We're going to want to make sure that there's a tenant tied to it. You could also be a commercial business tenant currently with landlord approval. And you could also be a nonprofit that could also be eligible. Now, a couple of things of folks that are not going to be eligible: residential properties that we talked about, including home-based businesses, manufacturing and industrial, which is a huge chunk of what we do in SBIF. Those are not going to be eligible for NOF. It's important to note that while nonprofits in general are eligible for NOF, things like daycares or schools or workforce development will not be eligible. And again, churches of worship and places of worship are not available as well. So now we can talk about, all right, we know your address is in an eligible NOF area, your applicant type is eligible. What could you actually use the funds for? Some similar things, but with a few differences. Again, eligible things, we major exterior and interior renovations, as we discussed before, build outs for businesses, building acquisition and site preparation and demolition. This is if you're actually buying a space, but then you're also going to be doing other pieces to the property to make it improve for the business. Things like architectural and engineering fees, mechanical, roofing, all of those good things, those are eligible. What's not going to be eligible, similar to SBIF, is minor improvements and that are totally cosmetic, any work on residential units, any funding to actually do repairs to address building codes, that will not be eligible, or any building operating expenses. It's important to note both SBIF and NOF are really truly focused on funding for permanent building improvements, not for working capital. So let's look at a couple example projects here. As you can see, this is for AGB Investigative Services in Chicago Lawn. You could see the before picture, they had a pretty sad looking awning and some of the glass window blocks, and they were able to completely redo their facade, and it looks awesome. Another really great story is Ositos Tap. That's in Little Village. And previously, this was a vacant space next to a liquor store. And what they turned it into was a speakeasy. And you can see the finishes. It looks really sophisticated. And it's a great spot locally for everyone to enjoy their specialty drinks. So for your understanding, the project timeline in general is they expect you to, at NOF program, to complete your projects within 2 years. It starts with being a finalist. It starts then going into being a grantee, that you're doing the actual project itself. And then you're an alumni and a great resource for everybody else that's applying. Now, the goal is obviously 2 years, and I would say this is the same for SBIF. We recognize that when it comes to construction projects, nothing is sure. There's also supply chain issues with getting materials. Our goal is 2 years, but we know that things do happen. So the key is really to communicate with us at SomerCor. If we know that there's a delay in your permit, if we know there's a delay in getting supplies there, if we know that you had to switch contractors, we can work with you. Our goal is to get you to the finish line. But in order to be fair, that nobody else who maybe has a project who's more shovel ready, doesn't get the opportunity, we want to make sure that you're staying on track. So the NOF application process is completely online, and you can learn more about the program at chicago.gov/NOF to learn about the next application dates, as well as other resources to use for the program. They actually just recently announced the most recent grant applicants for NOF. So I have an expectation that there will be another opening for new applications soon. So again, if you have any questions specifically related to NOF, feel free to be using the chat box, and I will be answering those at the end. So now we're going to totally shift gears. That was all focusing on SomerCor's role as an administrator of grant programs. Now I'm going to talk more about our role as an SBA 504 lender for a loan. And just to kind of talk a little bit about the 504, as you can tell, if it's a federal government program, there's always lots of acronyms and there's numbers that don't really mean much to the public. It's funny because the 504 program, the reasons why it's called that is because that refers to the piece of the statute that it was actually created in. So not so catchy, but the program has a really big impact. The reason why this program was created is that there was a recognition that small businesses, it was hard for them to access capital to purchase commercial real estate. And so they created this program with a specific focus on helping these types of small businesses. Additionally, it has a little bit of a policy focus, which makes it unique in that this loan is really going to be used to focus on job creation and retention, specifically community development, as well as making a pointed effort to really support MBEs, WBEs, and veteran-owned businesses. So talking about the 504, what is it? It is a loan program to buy, expand, or refinance major fixed assets. Those would be things like commercial real estate, the land, equipment, or heavy machinery. And when you think about using a 504 loan, there's actually 3 different players that are involved to finalize this financing. You have SomerCor, which is acting on behalf of the SBA. Then you have a traditional lender like a bank or a credit union. Sometimes we also have other nonprofits as well that will finance a portion. And then you, as the actual borrower, will have some equity injection into the project. Another question is, who can use it? It's pretty broad. The first keynote is it does have to be for profit. So unfortunately, nonprofits will not be eligible for this program. In terms of the actual business size, that's going to be under 15 million in tangible net worth. It's also really important to note that this isn't about flipping projects. When it comes to commercial real estate, this is about owner-occupied real estate. So if this is an existing place, building that you're actually going to be either purchasing, renovating, refinancing, you as your business actually have to be operating in 51% of the space. If you're actually purchasing land and going to build ground up construction, you actually have to be occupying 60%. And when it comes to the types of industries that we serve, it really spans across the board, everything from the manufacturing to the mom and pop restaurants, senior care facilities, retail, franchises, all of that we can cover. And so if you have a question about whether or not your business would be eligible, feel free to reach out. A lot of people might say, well, why would I want a 504 loan over a conventional loan or another loan I could get from a bank to buy a building? And here are sort of the key components. Number one is that, as we've noticed, interest rates are rising across the board, but the 504 effective rate really remains below market. So you're able to save. Right now, the SBA 504 effective interest rate is below 6%. And the great part is, as I mentioned before, the structure of the loan allows it so that you as the borrower really will only have to put 10% money down. And if you only have to put 10% of an equity injection into your loan, that means you have more money available that you could use for other things to build your business and reinvest in it. Additionally, the loan is long-term and the rates are fixed. So this really helps you save and plan. It helps you save by eliminating any potential balloon payments that can happen with a traditional loan. And when you have more accurate long-term planning, it's better for you to know your expenses. And it's also a great opportunity if you have a generational business to be able to plan ahead. This is some of the details that I spoke about earlier that shows how traditionally, if you were going to purchase a property, you would actually have to put 25% down. Now with the 504, you could put as little as 10% down. And it talks about the things that you can use the 504 for, the land, construction, remodeling, fixtures, things like that. Similar to SBIF and NOF, the 504 is the same. We're really focused on those fixed assets, so you will not be able to use the loan for working capital, inventory, things like that. The only caveat I would say in terms of how much money you might have to put down is, let's say you're either a startup, which are eligible, or you have a business like, let's say a gas station, that's the only way that property could be used. You may end up having to put in a little bit more equity. However, it would still be less than a conventional loan. Here are a couple of sample projects. This one here is for Ink Factory. I believe this is in Avondale, yes. And this actually was a really cool business that took off during COVID because it's a visual note-taking business. Obviously, we were all on a lot of Zoom calls like this. And what this business does is help actually draw notes to help keep you engaged as you're doing a webinar presentation. And they ended up growing and growing and needed to buy a space. And so this is kind of a really cool build out that they have here in Avondale, and it really made a difference for their business. In addition to the loan aspect of it, which is where you're purchasing the building, the land, and doing the renovations, another option is available for you if you already own your space. If you're interested in shoring up capital and doing a new refinance structure, the 504 is is a trusted solution to be able to address these needs. Small businesses can actually use the refi to leverage built up equity and take money out for working capital expenses, up to 20% of the appraised value of the commercial property. So this is that one chance that you have in using the programs that SomerCor offers, and we're talking about here today, to access cash out for working capital, items. Those are going to be things like salary, rent, utilities, inventory, things like that. So this is a really unique feature of the 504 that not only can you take the cash out to access these things, you're able to refinance and likely restructure your current loan at a lower rate that's more predictable. In terms of a 504 refinance sample project, this is a really cool one in Portage Park, La Peña Restaurante. It actually is a double client for SomerCor. And first, it actually used the SBIF, and then it actually used the refinance program. And it actually, his mortgage payments were cut in half. By using the 504, he was really able to bring that interest rate down, which is a really great benefit to him and the neighborhood. So if you're ready in terms of purchasing, renovating, refinanced your commercial real estate and heavy equipment, here are some key notes on what you would need to apply. I think, again, a lot of the items on here will look familiar to you. These are going to be basic financial information that we're going to ask for just about any time you're seeking capital, tax returns, financial statements, projections, things like that. So this is something that you would if you're interested in applying, it's always helpful to start getting these together before you talk to one of our loan officers. To that end, this is the entire SomerCor team that would really be able to help you with some of these projects that we've talked about today, both our loan officers as well as our team members that head up the SBIF and NOF Grant program. And with that, that is the end of my presentation for today. I'm going to switch back over so you have my contact information at the front, and then I'm going to turn it over to the treasurer's office to see if there are any questions that I can try to answer today. I see some general notes in here about where to access the details, but I don't see any questions. So I do encourage you all, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I can start off by answering a question that I get all the time, actually, which is sort of, what about the SBIF and NOF? How do they actually work together? And it's interesting because you actually can't use the SBIF and the NOF grants at the same time. You can apply for both, but let's say that you get accepted into one, you won't be able to use that other grant at the same time. If, however, in two totally different time periods, maybe you are an NOF alumni, you've already used it once, and now you want to use the SBIF, that's totally fine. But it's important to kind of keep in mind that in terms of using both at the same time, you would not be eligible. I think another question that folks ask quite often is, what are some of the key stumbling blocks that folks face when trying to access grant financing? And I think a key would be the permitting, and also the actual financing itself to be able to do the upfront costs of the project. When it comes to the permit process, it's really important, I think, that once you have the plan laid out and you already have your bid set, to right away apply for that permit. It doesn't, you might have 120 days in terms of the SBIF program to apply once you get your commitment letter, but I would do it right away so you can just get it out of the way and be able to keep moving forward. When it comes to questions about accessing capital to be able to pay the upfront costs of using the grants, we do have on the SomerCor website a list of lenders who have used the SBIF program, an NOF program before, and so they understand how the program works. Additionally, in terms of the SBIF program, we're really working to make it more accessible for folks. First, by introducing something called project phases, where you actually can do your project in little bites. So rather than having to have like the full cost of the project readily available to you, you can do it in smaller pieces. So that's something that we're working on to really help that aspects. I think additionally, some people might want to know a little bit more about how often SBIF funding comes up, what to do if their area is not a SBIF district, or if they find out like if they have any funding available. I would say in general, you can always send us an email at sbif@somercor.com. In terms of when your SBIF district may come available to apply, at the end of every year, we look and plan ahead for the next year. We work directly with the city that says, this is how much money is available in all of these areas. When's the last time we actually opened a SBIF, this SBIF district, and how much interest is in there. So if there's a lot of interest, we're much more likely to try to open it as much and as often as possible. So also, if you find that your district isn't open anytime soon, but you want to make sure that it does, a great idea is, again, send us an email so we can report to the city, hey, we've been actually getting a lot of applications and interest in this area. If, for example, though, your area is not eligible for SBIF, we suggest that you reach out to your alderman and let them know, hey, my area doesn't have SBIF. This would be something I'm interested in. I think that if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, but I don't know if I see any right now. Charisse?
So thank you so much, Kimberly, for this very informative presentation today. I'm going to encourage all of the viewers to screenshot or take a picture with your phone of Kimberly's contact information. I am certain that there will be some questions that come up after you ponder the information she presented today. However, on behalf of the Chicago Treasurer's Office, again, we want to thank Kimberly and SomerCor for taking some time out during National Small Business Week to share with our audience. We thank you so much for participating. And tomorrow, we're going to have Operation Hope that will be talking about their small business program and some basic information for small business startups. So again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, day 3 of National Small Business Week. And again, our thanks to Kimberly for this wonderful, informative presentation today. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you back tomorrow at noon.